G'day, this is Ben from Melbourne here, and today this is going to be part two of some of my favourite Australian music from the 90s. Of course, as I said in the previous video, 90s was a big time for me. I moved down from the country to the city, discovered live music for the first time, and discovered a whole underground scene of independent labels, punk rock, indie rock. A lot of things going on at Melbourne in the time, and probably one of the first things that really made me appreciate homegrown music was seeing all of those small shows. So this time I'm going to feature things more in the indie rock, indie pop side of things, which were what I would call more 90s bands than what I had in the previous video, which were a lot of legendary bands or performers who carried on through the 90s from the 80s. So let's get started with Custard with their album We Have the Technology. It's their third album. Really great, quirky indie rock with a pop sensibility, catchy songs, absurdist sort of sense of humor in there as well, as you can kind of tell by the cover where Custard, the name of the band, kind of trails off there. Little weird fact, if you know the kids show Bluey, Dave McCormack, the singer, is the voice of Bluey's dad. This is a band who I used to see in the 90s a number of times, and they're a really great, fun live band as well. Just to give you an idea of where they're coming from, one of my favourite songs is the track Music is Crap. Only they could come up with something like that. There's Nice Bird was another single off this, which is great. Totally Confused, got a almost pedal steel on there. Adds a countryish feel to their already quirky sound. Magnificent example of indie rock from the great Custard of Brisbane, Queensland. Next up, we've got the Stoners, the original and the best, Tumbleweed. Now, this is sludgy, thick, but also groovy and catchy as well. Tumbleweed, again, another fantastic live band with Richie on lead vocals, great presence up front, with the rest of the band with hair in their faces and just slamming hard on their effects pedals and bringing out that cosmic sludge that they do. Sundial's probably the best known song off this. Great record. This one's actually a reissue. That's the back cover there, on a nice blue vinyl. One of the great bands, still going today, still releasing records. And great to see them still going and playing great shows. Next up, Sandpit. Now, this was a favourite of mine. This is very much in the indie rock vein of the Fender Jaguar and Jazzmaster guitars, with weird tunings, angular songs with strange hooks, that kind of thing. This was their debut album. Brilliant stuff. I still think that the first two EPs just slightly pip this. Might have been because that was the first time I saw them. They were playing a lot of songs off those two EPs, but this is a great record. Not one I was expecting to see get a vinyl reissue, because I could count on two hands how many people were in the audience. A lot of times I'd go and see them. Just a plain black on the silver label there. Sandpit on Second Thoughts, this one's called. And next up, we'll go with Snout. Now, Snout were classicist, I guess you would call them, in the way that you can definitely hear a 60s vibe in there, but they've definitely got that indie rock in them as well. And Ross McKinnon, the lead singer, who also played bass, it's got a lot of strong bass lines, almost has a indie dance feel to it. Really groovy, cool band. Of course, his brother is Link Meaney, who is known for the Meanies, Bakelite Age, and 1,000 others. So this one's called Circle High and Wide. Ross McClellan still playing, still doing interesting things, but under his name. But yes, now Circle High and Wide, and the one behind me, that's a pretty damn good record as well. Next up, You Or My, Hi-Fi Way. Now, for me, this is the ultimate You Or My record, their second record, which is pretty amazing how good it is, because, you know, often it's said that the second record is the hardest one to make, because the first one you've been writing all your life and you put everything into it, but this eclipses their first record, and that's no mean feat, because that's a great record as well. Tim Rogers really come into his own as a songwriter in this. It's like it hits hard when they rock. It's got reflective ballads on here as well. Great use of mellotron throughout this record. It's funny how a lot of these 90s records have that sort of 60s vibe as well, with the artwork on there. This one's a reissue on Inertia Records. Gatefold on this one gives you a bit of a story. They were a great live band, but if somewhat kind of unpredictable, and as Tim Rogers has said, and in his autobiography that I read at the time, it could be a disaster or one of the best shows you've ever seen, because he was playing up a bit back in those days and caused a bit of trouble, but he seems to have redeemed himself in the Australian music community again. You and I still together, still releasing records, but this is as good as it gets. Yeah, Ain't Gone and Open Up, Minor Bird, Kathy's Clown, Jules and Bullets. Like, I could list every song on this. It's great. Next up, The Rumble from Geelong, Magic Dirt, with their mini album Life Was Better. Couldn't believe it when I first heard this record. I think I'd seen them around a few times, and they were just a great live band with noisy distortion feedback, but it's kind of catchy stuff that would stay in your head as well. Adelita doesn't get the credit she deserves, not only as a guitarist but as a songwriter. These guys are great. I saw them completely wipe the floor with Boss Hogg, who they supported at the time. The single off this was called Ice. There is a track at the end of side one which will really test your patience depending on what your tastes are, which is the song ends and then there's about 6 or 7 minutes straight of just feedback and noise and no song or anything. It's just guitarists going bananas with their pedals and amplifiers. So this one's a reissue. There's been a reissue program of all of the Magic Dirt stuff, which is great to see. It comes on a pretty cool coloured vinyl as well. There, again, that kind of 60s aesthetic with the cover, which I don't know, maybe because I was young and hadn't really discovered a lot of 60s stuff at the time, I didn't pick up that there was that kind of thing going on. Next one up, the amazing Dirty Three, of course, Mick Turner, Warren Ellis, and the brilliant Jim White on drums. For me, this is their best record, Horse Stories. it's equally beautiful, ferocious. It's got it all. Like, this is one of the most amazing live bands I've seen. Yeah, it can be moments of great beauty, and then just they can unleash hell. It's incredible to see. For an instrumental band, they convey so much emotion. So there's a nice inner in there. And the back cover, and I think this is just on black vinyl, this one. And this came out, I think that's way too small for me to read, so I'm sure you can look it up and find that out yourself. Next, another in the line of these 60s influence bands, even featuring the great Ash Naylor on vocals and guitar, and Wally Kempton, who's the bass player who also played with the Meanies. The great album Less Is More. Again, like Sandpit, I love their first 2 EPs. I think they might just pip this. Again, because I was seeing them a lot at the time, and those 2 EPs were what was around when I first started seeing them. But this was a great record. Again, got, as you can tell from the picture there, they go for those classic sounds with the Rickenbacker and the old amplifiers there, which was coming back in vogue with a lot of these bands in the 90s. Yeah, Stop and Go Man was a single off this, which was a really good way to promote this record. But the whole way through, this is a really good record. If you like that, your indie rock with a touch of the 60s style melodies with a hint of psychedelia in there, you really dig this. Even Less Is More. And speaking of the Meanies, as we did, here they are with 10% Weed. By this point, they'd released, had quite a few releases out, but this is where it all comes together. The unholy force of Link's Raw and his incredible Beatles-ish style of catchy melodies on top of a frenetic punk band is a skill to behold. And 10% Weed, it all comes together perfectly on this. Great live band again, a little bit scary when Link was in the mood. Yeah, pull a few moves which would definitely make the audience stand a fair way back from the stage. And if that happened, look out, because he'd be in the crowd with you. This one's a reissue on Poison City Records. It's got a great gatefold cover there of the band. It's the back cover. Comes with an extra record with a whole heap of extras. But yeah, for me, the record itself, yeah, 10% Weird, Ton of Bricks, Redneck Door, Pull the Switch, Corpse in Love, just killer stuff. This one's on a nice red coloured vinyl. I think that bonuses is on the blue vinyl. So very nice package there for the Meanies. 10% Weed. And lastly, Rat Cat Tingles EP. Now, as far as I know, this to me was the first sign of change rumbling in popular music in Australia. This predates, I think it's like bang on 1990. The whole Nirvana phenomenon over here. The single That Ain't Bad was played everywhere. It was on the music video shows over here as well. But it was still stood out and was really different, and it was probably a lot of people's first exposure to that indie pop, indie rock sound. Great stuff. They go on and release another couple of great singles and an album, but yeah, sadly were kind of then eclipsed by the whole grunge thing that came after, and yeah, and got swept up in that. But yeah, these early Rat Cat stuff's really good. That's on the Ruart label there. That's the boys on the back. And the inner there. Seem to remember that image being on a lot of t-shirts back in the day. And that's the last one I've got for that. So yeah, that was more the indie pop, indie rock side of things. Yeah, as I said, a great time for Australian music, and particularly a surge in underground again, which seems to be heartening, because over here it seems like every era there's a new crop. Every 10 years come up of interesting bands. We seem to have a ongoing love affair with punk rock and the Radio Birdman Saint sound, and it mutates into all fantastic forms. And yeah, vibrant live scene and a vibrant recording scene over here as well. That's probably it for the 90s as far as vinyl goes. I'll see how I go if I can put together a CD version, because as I said, there are a lot of things which I got which, far as I know, never came out on vinyl. But we'll see you then. Take care.